Welcome to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. Are you trying to master the game of life without success? There are secrets and strategies to living your best life. We'll share some of them with you on today's show. Take advantage of this series to become an expert at relationships. All relationships. It's time to live the life that you deserve to live. Now, here's your host, Sandra Reish.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish, a show about living your best life. And January 31st today. January is a notoriously difficult month for people, so we're going to keep on our January topic. We'd love to hear from you, 1-866-472-5792. If you should want to call the show or share some comments, if you are more the type who prefers to text or email, you can text me at 1-514-796-4357, or you can email us anytime. Even if you're not listening to the show live, no problem. You can send in your questions or comments. We love to hear from you at info@helpforanxietydepression.com. So my name is Sandra Reish. I am a licensed psychotherapist. I specialize in anxiety, depression, relationships, and general life stuff, which is relevant for January. And today I brought on the show another amazing licensed psychotherapist who's been on the show often. She's amazing. I love talking to her. I was just saying to her as we're going live, I haven't talked to you in so long. I love having a chat with her. And I know she's going to bring a lot of interesting stuff to the show today. So welcome back, Melissa Hinley.
Thank you.
Melissa, before we get into the topic, it's January. It's January 31st. You weren't here last week, but last week's show was about like Blue Monday, which is the lowest period of the whole year where people feel the lowest and where people can get quite down. It's not, you came bouncing in here like rosy and bushy tailed, but a lot of people in January don't feel so happy. I'm curious, I haven't chatted with you in a while. What's January like for you?
Yeah, I think that's why I was happy that you were talking about when I saw the topic today. I was really excited because I find that lately in the clinic we've been seeing this, that January has just been really, really hard, really low energy. And I often see things on Facebook like those memes or, can't wait for January to end. And so there's a lot of people on social media talking about this as well. So I think it's a really good topic that we're addressing this now.
How are you doing in January? What's January been like for you? I haven't seen you. What's your January been like in a nutshell?
January's been up and down. Like
That's honest.
Yes. Like there's things that, after the holidays have been passed and we're feeling really excited after the January 1st, right? There's New Year's resolutions, which we're going to talk about today. And so there's that motivation. I felt that picked up at the beginning of January, and then with everything, with the Monday, like actually with the temperature and the weather, that can all really have an impact. And so, it goes up and down, but that's
some days you feel good and some days you don't feel as good.
Yes. And that's why sticking to my routine and my self-care, that's why January, especially when it's normal with the weather and everything that's been going on, that we have to stick to our routine.
So that's a good first strategy. I honestly think routine actually saves my life, not only in January. I'm doing a presentation tomorrow on burnout, and I was looking at the symptoms of burnout, and I was like, sometimes when you have too many balls in the air and too much work, you can be very prone to burnout. And I thought, well, I've got a lot of balls in the air. That could be very dangerous. Why am I not in burnout? And I really attribute it just to having a good routine. So I think that's a really important point. Yeah. I'm very disciplined about my routine. So we're going to talk about some of those things. Last week, we talked about the importance of getting outside of the house and exercising and making sure you get sunlight and, time for fun. We've done that. Yeah. So really the goal of the show today, if you're just, picked up today's show, is, people start off very motivated in January. They're going to lose those 10 pounds. They're going to change their life. They're going to improve their relationship. And something around this period, around January 31st, it starts to peter out. Yeah. So I want to try to tackle with you why people have a hard time keeping their resolutions and where they're hitting the wall. You mentioned one is they need a routine, which means they need a strategy. But I'm very curious your thoughts on this idea of how people can keep their pumped up, motivated ways at the beginning of the year. How do they keep that going beyond January 1st?
Yeah. And this is something that I've recently, I think this year was the first year I really did something different, because, we hear a lot about talking about resolutions and New Year's Eve, and it's like new year, new me. And the more I think about it, the more I start to understand that the word resolution in itself is a problem. I think that there's some fault in having those resolutions.
No.
What I'm going to offer, and that some people in mindfulness have started to do a lot more research and start talking about, is the word intention versus resolution. Because I think that there's a lot of fault in the word resolution in and of itself that sets us up to fail.
Go, say more.
Yay. So the first thing is that I think to define the two, when we talk about resolution, like, what does that mean to you? When you hear the word resolution, what does that mean?
Something you're going to change.
Okay, so something that you're going to change. And when we're applying that something that needs to be changed, what message is that sending to you?
That something in my life is not okay.
Yes.
Right.
That something in my life is not okay, or that I'm not okay. Like, there's something within me that is maybe like not defective, but that's something that is not good enough.
Right.
So already there in and of itself, I think, is the number one mistake. Because
so you're almost putting yourself down right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah. So it's already implying that that something is wrong, that you need to change about yourself. And we don't like feeling, even though it might be true that there's things we want to improve on, but research shows that language and the way that we talk to ourselves is very, very powerful with motivation and behavior. So already right off the bat, if we're telling ourselves that we need to change, that there's something that's wrong with us or is defective right now, then that's I feel like the number one mistake.
Well, I think let's take a pause, because I think that's such a valuable point. I can tell you of another one, but I think let's drink that in a little bit, because I think it's very smart what you're saying. I think I talk a lot about the story you tell yourself is the story of your life. So the story you tell yourself, from what you just said, is that there's something defective about me. The new year's come, I'm going to become effective. And you're right, there's a put down there. Put downs are not linked with motivation.
No.
So that's a really good point.
And it's so subtle, because we don't think we're putting ourselves down. No, because
it's the language of that's what people say. What's your New Year's resolution? Okay, so if I decide there's nothing defective about me, but I want to lose 10 pounds, that's an intention? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so that's where then I separate what the difference between a resolution, a goal, and then the intention. Because we do want to live, as you say, like the best version of ourselves. So there's always ways that we can improve. So, but language is going to be very important. So the definition here of a goal is our desire to get a desired result, like something that we see in ourselves that we want to meet our goal, have the results. Okay. And the problem is that if we don't see the results fast enough, and a lot of times the things that we want to change takes time. And so when we don't see that results fast enough, what ends up happening?
We give up.
Yeah, we give up. We get discouraged. And we've talked about this in another show, but we don't, with the procrastination, is that when we don't feel confident and good at something, then we lose motivation.
Right. We go towards things we are good at.
Yes. And then a resolution is more like a firm decision on not doing something we don't like.
Right.
So like, I want to lose 10 pounds. So these are things I have not to do. Like, I can't do these things. Right. And that already there, the can't feels like oppressive. Yeah. So what I like about the word intention is like a thing that you intend to do. It's like an aim or a plan. And so just making that small little shift of wording can really affect our motivation. So if I say, for example, instead of saying like the resolution would be, I want to lose 10 pounds, make it an intention. Like, what is your intention? And so what would the intention be if you want to lose 10 pounds? The intention would be, I want to live a healthier lifestyle.
That could be the intention. So that I like what you're saying, but I want to make sure people understand they have to arrive at that intention. Because I want to lose 10 pounds doesn't say anything about a healthy lifestyle to me. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't, because you could lose 10 pounds on lollipops.
Yes.
Doesn't mean
not a healthy lifestyle.
You have to go deeper than the 10 pounds, is what you're saying. Yeah. To get to the intention. So we need that step. Is go deeper on what is it you want? Why do you want it? And then you'll get to the intent. Well, I want to be healthy. Why do you want to lose 10 pounds? Well, maybe what if the person says, well, I just want to look better? What if that's the only thing they want is to look better? What would be their intention then?
Well, just like that, then to
maybe to look better.
Yeah, to look better. Yeah, to look better, or just to have a healthier lifestyle. Because the thing is that when there's an intention, it's like, what intention do I set for myself? And just even saying that, I don't know how you feel about it, but just even saying the word intention, like I intend to live a healthier lifestyle. Right now, it's still too vague, so we do need to break it down a bit to make it more specific of what that means. But to me, that just feels a lot better when we look at the word intention versus the resolution. So when we look at, let's say our intention is to live a healthier lifestyle, then, let's say if I say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, my resolution is we're going to the gym, let's say 3 times a week, and it has to be very firm.
Yes.
Like 3 times a week. And what happens if I only go twice? Did I meet my goals?
No. So you failed.
So I failed, but I still went twice. But it doesn't feel like I met my goal because the way that I set it up.
It was set up for a possible failure.
Versus if I said my intention is to go to the gym and 3 times a week, and my intention is to live a healthier lifestyle, then there's let's be realistic. It would be really nice to meet our goals and to say, okay, we can go to the gym. But the problem is sometimes reality, we can't go. Like this week, I got back from Toronto, and this week has just been really stressful, and I'm out of my routine, and I didn't have time to go to the gym. But I still, because I set it as my intention, I'm more motivated to go back to it instead of just giving it up completely because I didn't meet my goal.
Okay, so you feel that if the nuance of calling it an intention instead of a resolution is going to make that difference. I want to talk more about that and see where people could hit the wall on that and understand it a bit better. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about more ways to really become the person you want to be in 2019. I mean, that is the bottom line, is how do you get yourself from point A to point B? Stay tuned. We'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary Anxiety Videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
A fresh look at today's health. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
Back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish, a show about living your best life. And here we are, January 31st, going into February. Time of year that a lot of people are struggling and finding that they're not able to keep their routines. Melissa was teaching us a little bit before the break the idea of setting an intention, and I guess in a way that you're not set up to fail. So I think, although I love this concept of intention as opposed to resolution, I think my bit on this, listening to you, Melissa, is that the most important thing, the words help, but the most important thing is whatever is behind the words cannot be rigid. That's what you were just telling me on the break.
Yeah.
Because if it's my intention or my resolution is go to the gym 5 times a week, if I go only 3 times, I fail. And I kind of like this. I think it's always good to bring it back with a personal example. So myself, I'm very tough on myself in terms of exercise. I am a big exerciser. I walk every day, almost 2 hours a day. I don't know if you know that about me, but I walk an hour outside and usually an hour inside. That's one of my things, okay? And I am guilty of that rigidity because when I don't meet my goal of a certain amount of steps, I feel like a failure. And I also this week, I'm completely off my routine, and there was a lot of resistance in me because I was upset because I count my steps on my phone and I'm not getting my target numbers. So if I apply what you're saying, what I like about it is it's although the intention resolution is a good nuance, what I really like is that I need to change my goal, intention, or resolution to I want to walk regularly because I want to be as healthy as possible, as opposed to I want to hit 16,000 steps a day.
Yes.
Because I'm going to fail. And when I fail, you're right, too many days of failure, and my mood starts to spiral down, and then I'm not likely to go back to it.
Exactly.
That's exactly where I am today, actually, because I'm on my 5th day that I haven't met my goal, and I'm thinking I got to walk tonight. And there's a part of me that feels like a failure to begin with, because I'm never going to make 16,000 at this point of the day.
No.
So therapist is falling into the trap.
Yeah, it's so easy. And yet, are you still, by even doing those steps, are you still meeting your goals of being healthy and
not if I'm stressing out about it.
Not if you're stressing out, but if you move away from the exact number and just focus on, okay, what other things this week might have led to you feeling like living a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, and I did do things. I did walk outside. I did do stretch. I mean, this is probably a little bit boring, the things I did, but I ate, beautiful, delicious, healthy food. I didn't lose sight of my intention, to use your words, to live as healthy a lifestyle as I'd like. But I do think that the reason I'm putting myself on the line here is because I think I represent a lot of type A personalities, which I am, who feel that if you don't meet the goal, it's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
And I know as a therapist, the answer to this is to lower the standard and to choose your words carefully. But I really like bringing in, let's change the entire intention to begin with.
Yeah, because when we look at facts, right? Is it a fact that because you didn't hit 16,000 steps that you're not healthy, or is it? Oh
no.
Right, and so it's hard.
Like the critical voice, right? Yes, which we talk about. The critical voice would say, well, this is what the critical voice is, so you can play therapist here now. Yeah. The critical voice would say, well, it's true, it doesn't mean I'm not healthy, but I'm not as healthy as I should be. Yeah. That's what the critical voice would say. Yeah.
Well, and my answer to that is that, of course, every time, we can set this ideal self. If I ask you listeners right now to just picture what your ideal self, and you, Sandra, too, what is ideal self of what ideally Sandra is, what ideally Melissa is, we will always never measure up to it. We will constantly not, of course, we can't live up to the ideal self. That the ideal self is impossible, right? So of course we're gonna always be one notch lower than our ideal self, and that's okay.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I think that we have to be very careful about the story we tell ourselves and how hard we drive the car. And honestly, this week, there's been a few times where I was like, okay, I've had other things that I've had to do, and it's okay. Because if I give in to the critical voice, it's the beginning of the end of doing things. So, I think you're right. We have to be compassionate with ourselves. So that might be another strategy we want to add to the table. January, keeping your resolutions, keeping your intentions. What about the idea that we have good, there's a very famous expression, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Are you familiar with that expression?
I had never heard it.
It's a great one because, people have a lot of intentions, but having intentions and realizing your intentions are two very different things.
Yeah.
So the reason they say that is it's not enough to have an intention, and that's what we're on a little bit here. So how do we take our intentions and make them into behavioral realities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing is you want to be able to make a list, to sit down and really ask yourself, what is my intention for maybe not just the year, but what is my intention, like you started off saying, who do I want to be moving forward? And we have to kind of visualize our future self of what that means. So ask yourself, what is your intentions? To me, I asked when I sat down and said this, I'll share with you, but my intentions was to slow things down, because I find that a lot of times I end up rushing through things. So rush through my day, rush through eating. I actually eat very quickly, rush through making supper, rush through.
You do eat very quickly.
I eat so fast.
I know that about you.
Yeah, so that was my instead of resolution, I reframed it as my intentions, just to slow things down, which then decreases my anxiety and my stress. So make a list with your intentions on a journal or a piece of paper. You just write my intention is, and just kind of brainstorm here. Just throw things out. You don't need to commit to anything just yet, but it's just a good starting place just to kind of let ideas flow and just see what is it that you really want. Then,
I like that.
Yeah, then after your list, then you can look at it, and then we can start to be more specific.
Right. So
when I say, okay, I want to live a healthier lifestyle, so what does that mean? What does that entail? And so there you can now put goal settings, but as long as we use empowering words and compassion words versus we have to avoid words such as should, always, never, and must.
Why?
So these are very common cognitive distortions, and when we say that I should go to the gym, it's implying that if we don't go, there's a failure aspect that we're kind of as you say, scolding ourselves for not going, and again, that we talked about early on the show, it just then decreases motivation. So we want to use, just like how we'd motivate a friend, we'd want to do the same with empowering words once we be more specific in what we want. Okay. So for my intention was to slow things down, then I'll be more specific. So when I feel like I'm eating is trying to use mindfulness. It's a technique of trying to really slow things down and absorb what that tastes like, what the food texture is like. Or when I'm getting ready in the morning, just trying to, instead of rushing, just really trying to slow things down. So I really targeted in my morning routine, because waking up morning stress is never a good start. But my morning routine and then my eating, that's where I'm concentrating.
Good for you.
On the most.
Love it. How's that going?
It's going, yeah, I catch myself. So again, but because this is an intention, I don't feel like I'm failing. So I just catch myself when I'm not slowing down and just redirect. And that's what comes me to my next point, is that we have to consistently, almost on a daily basis, I have to remind myself, what is my intention? Right?
I think that's a good point. And let's pause on that. I think people, listeners right now, you're thinking of things you want to change. It's not enough to set the intention. You need to repeat it daily.
Repeat it daily.
Yeah. Or put a sign. Or last week, Georgia was saying, whatever your goals are, have posters and stars and, behavioral reinforcement. Because why is it so important to repeat it every day, by the way? I know why, but let's make sure the listeners know.
Well, it's just that we end up losing sight of it. And by restating it, you're actually recommitting to it. It's actually a recommitment, an inner commitment that you're reminding yourself, this is what I want, and what can I do today to meet that intention.
Right.
So you're recommitting to yourself by reminding yourself.
Right, and we know the brain goes back to what it knows. So the brain is not going to go back to doing the new behavior. So unless you have a strategy in place, you're going to go back to the old behavior. I really want to take a moment on that. So I want everybody to hear that. The brain goes back to what's familiar. So if what's familiar to me is to criticize myself and my intention is to be kinder to myself, unless I recommit daily, my brain will go back to what it knows to criticize itself.
It's so easy for me to fall back and rush.
Yes, because it's what you know for X amount of years that you've been alive.
How many years?
Having a January intention is not going to change that. It's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's important.
And we
repeat it every day, peeps.
Yeah, we lose sight of that. So reminding yourself, it's that inner commitment, coming back to my intentions, and it's really that's what helps me to remind myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like I said, very important, I don't feel like I failed because it's not a resolution that was so rigid. It was like, okay, this is what I'd like for myself, and what can I, in the moment, just slowing down, and that helped me get back on the train.
That's great.
Instead of criticizing.
Just let me throw you a little curveball here, Melissa.
Yeah.
Keep you on your toes. What about someone who has no intentions or resolutions at this time of year? What do you say to that? Is that dangerous? Is that bad? What's going on there?
Well, there could be a couple things. I think that's a great question. And as you know, you have to ask yourself, is it the question I ask clients, like when they're not sure or when I'm not sure, is it creating a problem for you?
Is it working? Yeah.
Is it working? Because if you have no resolution or intentions or goals, whatever fits for you, you know, and it's not creating any problems, then we have no right to change something that is working for you.
Right.
But if we be, and I love how you say this, if we be honest with ourselves that, you know, change is hard, but maybe it's not really working for me.
Right.
You know, having no intentions, having no goals, having no plan of what I'd like to do in the future, you know, if it's creating a problem, then maybe I need to re-examine what could I be avoiding.
Right. So question one is, I got to ask myself, is my life working for me the way it is? With the extra weight, with the critical voice, with the eating too fast, with working too many hours, is it working well for me? You got to start with that truth. And I think that's a really important point, because there's a tendency to say everything's fine. People love to say things are fine, I notice, but things are not really fine. And you have to first tell yourself the truth that they're not fine.
Yeah. It's like when we were trained, right? It's like when someone presents that if it's not creating a problem for them, then I have no right. It's almost as if I was at their house. I don't have a right to walk in their house and make myself a cup of tea. You know, if they don't see the problem that it's creating, then I don't have a right to go and try to create a problem.
Well, that's a good comment about good therapy, by the way, too, is that good therapists, you know, we talked about this yesterday on the phone, is that if your clients, and this is important for clients who are listening or potential clients, if something in your life is working and a therapist is trying to get you to do it their way, that's ego. I always say to I see my clients sometimes putting their hand in the blender, as I like to say. If their hand is getting cut up and they agree with me, we have strategies to avoid cutting your hand up. But if you're happy with your hand in the blender and it's working well for you, I agree with you. I think that's really inappropriate to tell someone to change. If it's working for you, good, but you have to be honest.
You have to be honest.
Your hand cut up in a million pieces,
and you tell yourself
it's working for you, that's an interesting story you're telling yourself if you're bleeding from every part of you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to talk about how to keep your intentions alive and how to really, we're ending up on the topic is how to make significant change in your life. And I think we're at the key thing before the break I want you all to think about is it's something that I really believe in a lot, is to tell yourself the truth. You know, maybe on the commercial, think about really honestly, are the things in your life working? And there's many aspects: your health, your relationship, your individual life, your financial future, your house, your personal relationships, all sorts of stuff, fun even. Is it working for you? And if the answer is yes, you're good. And if there's things you'd like to make changes, come back. We'll teach you how. We'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Your life, your health, your network. This is Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
I am here with Melissa Henley, psychotherapist at the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression, specialist in anxiety, depression, emotions, relationships, family dynamics, children, teenagers. Your repertoire keeps increasing, and so many clients so incredibly affected by your incredible skill, Melissa. So we're very happy to have you here, and I'm really happy to have you at the center. On using your incredible skill set here, we arrived at the fact that the first level, which I love because you and I think a lot alike, the first level of change is to tell yourself the truth. Mm-hmm. So we've got that. So then you and I got into a little chat on the break, and that always happens is we have a chat on the break. I want it on the radio. So the chat on the break is that the problem is, even if you tell yourself the truth, there's always a risk that you're going to sabotage your change. Now, Melissa, why on earth would anyone sabotage what they supposedly want to change in their life?
Well, yeah, great question, because we see this all the time at the center. It's like, and then people criticize themselves. I really want this. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? They really put themselves down. And so what I do is to say, well, like if you're criticizing yourself, it's a sign that your anger is actually being directed onto you. So that's my first red flag. So the first step is really to try and understand the mechanism under why the behavior is not changing. So we have to understand our mechanisms, why the behavior is not changing.
Okay.
And that mechanism could be that we might actually be suppressing a difficult emotion.
Oh, that's your favorite topic.
That's my favorite topic.
Okay, so what would be an example of that? You gave me one on the break.
So let's say, for example, right now there's a new semester starting, and this is a lot of my clients' New Year's resolution is I want to be more on top of studying. I want to, do well on my exams, take notes. It's like a fresh new semester, a fresh start, right? Mm-hmm. And so now we're getting into the end of January, and there's a lot of critical thoughts about why this behavior. I set out this goal. It started off great, but it's not really, I'm starting to revert to old patterns. So you have to, again, when we're reverting to old patterns, you said that our body and our brain is used to doing that, but we have to also ask, what is the mechanism that's driving the car? So, when we start to criticize ourselves, we have to look at what's going on underneath. Like, instead of spending all that energy criticizing yourself over why it's not getting done, let's really take a look and see what's going on. So as we look around, could it be that maybe, in this example that we're talking about, is that maybe there was a lot of other feelings about being in school and this pressure. And so what we discovered was that there was so much pressure from her family because everybody in her family has a high education, like master's level. And she feels this tremendous amount of pressure that she has to perform and succeed just as much as, or maybe even more than what they did. And deep down, maybe that's not really what she wants. And so, yeah, we have to ask ourselves, is this behavior what I want, or is it what someone else wants? And she really thought that school and everything is what she wants, and she will continue. This doesn't mean that she will not continue, but it just helps her to understand a little bit more of her resistance.
So you're saying that in this particular case, a big part of her resistance is a hidden anger.
A hidden anger.
Right. So we want to put it out to people. Could you be angry about something? Like, if I have a lot of work to do and I'm not doing it, could be angry that I have so much work on me.
Yeah. Even I hear a lot of clients, it's like, and it's not, we work on this, but, a lot of clients that want to lose weight, there's a hidden anger of why can other people, this is a trap, but just to illustrate my example of anger is that, why can other people eat this and they're okay? Why do I have to be the one that it's not helping me?
So what's going on there?
Well, first of all, there's a hidden anger. So what could be the hidden anger about?
Well, I threw the hidden anger at you, but I'm going to answer the other question then, is I think when we're saying how come other people can eat and not me, I think we're falling into the victim.
Well, that is a victim trap.
Yeah, I think that's a victim trap, but you tell me about the hidden anger.
Well, there's a victim trap. And so if this is where it gets a little complex, because if we're in a victim trap, that's usually a stance that we go to when something's unfair, right? Or when something happens, we end up taking this victim stance. But there's something in your life that you ended up taking that stance in a different area. And so maybe there could be a different anger that's coming out about how life's unfair, and so we have to be very careful of.
So what does that mean? I don't get it. So if I find it unfair that other people can eat what they want and I can't, you're saying that has to do with other areas of my life where I think things are unfair?
It can be, and maybe there's anger there, or maybe you're just simply angry at the fact that, you know, genetically and that we're designed that sometimes we're just not that way, and that's the reality.
Okay.
So sometimes instead of keep denying it, sometimes it's actually helpful just to admit that, so that we don't fall in the trap of.
So I admit that I'm bitter that other people have better genes than me.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then the question asks, what are you going to do about it? Right? Like what
can I do about it?
Well, this is the reality, but is there other ways? And that's where the intention comes in. Is there other ways that I can meet this goal? Right. So I want, like, we can always validate our feelings, that it's okay to be angry, that, you know, like like my sister, she's very healthy, very fit. Like my two sisters have, and for me, I struggled with weight my whole life. So I often fell into that trap. Well, why did my two sisters get these genes and I didn't? But I'm allowed to be angry, but it's what am I going to do about it?
Right.
And that's where my intentions come in.
And that's where you also get out of the pity party, right?
Yeah, because the pity party you end up doing nothing and staying miserable.
Right, and that's not effective. But, you know, I mean, victim mentality is very rampant and very, very hard sometimes to catch yourself, to make sure that you're not stuck in victim mentality, don't you think?
Yeah. So that's why it's important just to see if there's any emotions, and that's the part about being true with ourselves too, is there any emotions that are coming up about, instead of criticizing myself, could there be any anger or sadness or something that's coming up about the topic?
Yeah, so no doubt. So if you're starting to feel sorry for yourself, I always say it's okay to have a little pity party. But the thing is that the problem with the victim mentality is, as I think we're saying, it's not going to produce any change. So even if you were able to prove to a court of law that it's extremely unfair that your sister got different genetics than you, how does that keep you warm at night?
Yeah.
What will that do for you? Even if a whole bunch of people say, oh my God, you're right, that's so unfair.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's interesting that we arrived on this topic, because I'm very fascinated with the topic of unfairness altogether, because I think it's one that people really struggle with. And I think it is relevant to goal setting and intention. Life is really quite unfair. So as a therapist, how do you help people make sense of that? Things are unfair.
Yeah.
So people find that hard. People want fairness.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to accept that. But unfortunately, you know, I always tell we have 4 ways to dealing with things. We can try to problem solve. So if it's unfair, is there solutions? Is there things that we can try to problem solve? Then we can try to change the way we think about it, because if we keep thinking it's unfair, then nothing changes. So we can try to change our thoughts about the situation, or we can accept that that's just the reality, although we don't like it. But that's the reality of the situation, or we can do nothing and stay miserable.
Right. So, and those choices produce different mood states.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm in January.
Yes.
I want to get into a good mood state, but I'm feeling a bit low. I have not been able to keep to my intentions. The days are short. I'm not happy. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
How do I get back on track?
Well, first recommit to your intentions. So
write it back down.
Write it back down. Verbalize it to yourself. Also, telling somebody else. Why is that helpful when you tell somebody else your intentions?
Well, I think it makes you accountable, eh?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes you accountable. So if I tell you, you know, now I said on the radio to everybody that I want to do 16,000 steps. So a whole 20,000 listeners may be asking me if I got my steps in. Yeah. I mean, I'm joking, but it does put it out there that somebody, you know, could ask you, so how are you doing on your walking? How's that going? And then it forces you to have to look at what's going on. Are you living true to yourself? The thing is, I guess we get really caught up in our lives. And so we fall off the wagon pretty easily. You talked about getting out of your routine.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that happens, right? We get out of our routine and we have to be able to deal with that.
Yeah. This week that coming back I was extremely out of my routine, and I can feel it right away. But it's just about, again, like I said, that even though I got out of my routine, I'm still technically doing things that are still leading to a healthy lifestyle. So I didn't throw away all my resolution and my goals. And now it's just, it's kind of like I have to not restart. I want to reframe that, but it's just reinstate what is it that you want, and then making those specific short-term goals.
Specific short-term goals.
Yes, that you can do now.
What does that mean?
So what are things that you can do today? So you might not meet your goal today, but that's something, and that's part of introducing mindfulness. So that's another big wave that's in psychology and in society right now, is that how can I be mindful about what it is my intention, and what can I do today that is in the direction of my intention? And how can, by being mindful, what does that mean to you? How can that help with our intentions?
Well, the mindfulness is living in the moment. So being very, very aware of what you're doing. Like in your case, to be aware if you're moving fast or moving slow. I think that it's mindfulness plus, because it's also what you said, specific steps on what would it look like to make those changes. A lot of times when people say things, they don't even know what the steps would look like to make it happen. Yeah. I mean, I was at work today too. Even in couples, that's a very common issue that, you want to feel more loved. Well, what does that mean? Break it down into measurable, specific steps.
Yeah, because this is what the phenomenon of planning fallacy is that where we underestimate exactly how much time and energy and effort and what we exactly need to reach our goal. So that's why it's very important to be very specific, but still leaving that room like with the intention of that if you didn't meet it, it's okay. You're still living.
As long as you're moving.
Yeah, as long as you're moving, you're still living with that intention.
Okay, so we'll take a short break. When we come back, I'll talk a little bit about the concept of stretch as opposed to panic attack in terms of change, which is an important point because people, at this time of year, usually set themselves up for failure by trying to reach a little too far on their goals, which leads them right back to comfort zone. I'll explain that. We'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
Your life, your health, your network. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
Okay, so as promised, I want to talk a little bit about a concept that for me it's a game changer of when you're making change. I talk about it often when I speak, which is the idea that when you try to make a change in your life, if you try to make too small a change and it's too comfortable, nothing's gonna happen, because we love comfort zone. It's our warm bath water. We don't like to get out of the warm bath water. It feels good. So that's not effective. But what people tend to do around January is they go from warm bath water into the Arctic. Like they try to make a huge change. And what happens is if you try to make a huge change, so example, okay, so I decide, let's go back to I want to lose 10 pounds. So I'm not going to eat any carbohydrates at all. I'm not going to eat any sweets at all. I'm not going to have any alcohol at all. So it's a very extreme position. So that feels so aversive that what happens, we call that the panic attack position. What happens is as you start to face what you've agreed to, it becomes so aversive. Where do you think you go? You go right back to comfort zone. So that's a non-effective strategy. So what in psychology, what we believe that's extremely important is there's a zone in between panic attack zone and comfort zone called the stretch zone. And it's a very important place, the stretch zone. Stretch zone is measured by a place that you feel definitely uncomfortable, but not in a panic attack, but not in warm bath water either. It feels mildly uncomfortable. I often say good therapy, by the way, should always be in the stretch zone. Sidebar, if you are in therapy, if you're choosing a therapist, if they're keeping you in comfort zone, not good. If they're putting you in panic attack, not good. Mildly uncomfortable, you found your therapist. Okay, with change, it works the same way. So mildly uncomfortable, guess what happens if I stick with mildly uncomfortable? Eventually it becomes comfortable, and then I can move on to the next step and the next step and the next step. And that is what people who are very effective at change do. They keep stretching. Melissa, thoughts on that?
Yeah, very important, because when it creates this discomfort. So what about, and I love this, and it's the first time I'm hearing you talk about this for me. I'm sure you've already talked about it, so this is great. But when we're in that stretched zone, what is it about the stretch zone that makes the discomfort? Like, why do we get uncomfortable during that stretch zone? What feelings are coming up?
Well, again, you're getting out of the comfort zone, so you're feeling not like yourself.
Yeah, you're not feeling like yourself.
Yeah.
And when we don't feel like ourselves, it's when we get uncomfortable, it's because actually what's happening, why we get uncomfortable is, yes, we're moving away from our comfort zone and we're not feeling like ourselves. And that triggers a huge inner conflict. It's like there's two mixed emotion that rises up really quickly. And so these two mixed emotions, so one is that so the mixed emotion is that one, I really want this change, right? I really want this behavior to change or to do something. And then the other mixed emotion could be what? Could it be maybe fear?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The fear comes and gets you, or, I don't feel like myself. What if this doesn't work out? What if this is just a bad idea? The what ifs, basically, I would think.
Yeah, and of course, if we let the what ifs run our energy, then that's what's going to make us go back into our comfort zone. But we do need a little bit of those mixed feelings to help, because we don't like that inner conflict within ourselves. We don't like not feeling like this two mixed emotions. And so what can reduce these two mixed emotion is to be able to identify what it is that you want and move towards that, so it decreases actually those inner mixed feelings. So the good news is that if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling those mixed feelings, it's actually a good sign. Low levels of it, it's actually a good sign you're in that sweet spot of moving forward to your direction. So
you're saying if you feel uncomfortable,
yes,
it's a sign that you're having mixed emotions.
It's a sign of mixed emotions,
and that's a good sign.
And that's a good sign. Low levels of it, because then when you said when you're too comfortable, nothing changes.
No.
So if you're like, okay, I don't like my weight, but I don't want to put in the work, that's okay. You're just acknowledging your two mixed emotions. But that's what it comes back to the mindfulness. What can I do today that helps me to feel a little bit more comfortable within myself? And that would be to do the steps that I set for myself. So maybe instead of going into the all or nothing thinking of I'm going to have 0 carbs, is I'm just going to have, a little bit of healthier carbs like the quinoa or some examples.
And just for the record, for anyone listening, I am not a believer in lowering your carbs.
No.
So I just want to go on record on that. Carbs are extremely healthy, but we'll keep that
It's our energy.
We'll keep that on a nutrition show, which is probably overdue and very important to me. Carbs are your energy, and it's one of the biggest myths out there that you should get rid of carbs, but we divert. Okay? But I just use it as an example, is to maybe, and you're saying maybe not to go to an extreme position.
Yes, not an extreme position, not the all or nothing. So it's okay you're feeling mixed emotions. That's what helps us to change when we're feeling uncomfortable.
Right. I think that's really important. And it's very much what stretch means, is that stretch zone is uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is not a bad thing.
No, it's okay. Because a lot of people it's like, oh no, I feel uncomfortable. I have to go back to what makes me comfortable. But sometimes what makes me comfortable doesn't meet my goal, and maybe not the best thing for me.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think that's where we probably lose most people making the changes of the beginning of the year.
It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable, and maybe the goal was too high.
Yeah.
That's panic attack. So we don't want a panic attack, but a little discomfort never killed anyone, I always say. Okay. As a matter of fact, a little discomfort is a good thing for you.
Yeah.
Growing pains, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I like to do is to look how, when you look at January, is to look at the steps you did make. Because sometimes we set these goals and we're like,
that's true.
It's so far. I remember in Vancouver, I said this before a long time on the radio, but there's this really long beach. And when you walk on it, you're like, oh my God, am I ever going to get there? And it feels like you can never get there, but how do you know what progress you're making is to look backwards and to watch your footsteps and say, actually, I did make a lot of steps. I can see my footsteps. I can see where I've came from. Even if they're really small, it's important to celebrate your success.
So how do we do that?
So really to actually, you can even write a list, like what did I do in the last month of January? Even if you didn't meet your goal yet, it's okay to check in with yourself and say, what did I do this month?
I love that. I love that. So, we're just about at the end of the show. So let's both answer that question. I'll answer it and you can too. Is what did you do to meet your goal of slowing down?
Yeah. Well, definitely I noticed even today I was a little late or just right on time of coming, but that was
because you gave yourself time to eat,
to slow down, to eat,
Good
to
for
put
you.
myself first. So although it was stressful, because it's as Sandra knows me, I'm very punctual. I don't like to be late.
Early, I would say you're early, not even punctual. You're early.
But it's just about trying to say just to slow down. So when I see small victories, although it made Sandra very stressed, it's like small victories. It's
well, I think that's also, all kidding aside, it's also about tweaking, right? When you start to make one change, you sometimes have to tweak. It's like when people first like boundaries, all of a sudden everything's a boundary. So you slowing down, you may still have to find the balance.
Yes,
between,
I do.
Right. But I love that example, and I love that that's a victory, and I think you should take that in, and I'm fine. You made it to the show. Yes. We're good. I will say that for me, one of the things I want to increase my steps, but one of the things I really wanted to work on in the last few months is getting outside in these cold months to do the walking, which is not an easy thing to do when it's minus 25, and I've done it every day.
Wow, good.
So I'm going to take that as a victory, and I'm going to end the show feeling very good, and not look at the fact that I didn't get my steps this week, but look at the fact that I got outside every single day. Yay.
I love that.
Yay. Melissa, great stuff.
Thank you.
Really good. Great conversation, and really insightful what you brought to us. Good job on slowing down on your eating. I can't wait to check in with you and see how that continues. We'll continue this conversation off the air, and I hope you guys do too. And feel free to email us or text us info@helpforanxietydepression.com or 1-514-796 if you have 796-4357, excuse me, if you have comments. Thank you, Melissa, again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it. I'd like to invite you all to come back to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish next week. If you're interested in anything that was mentioned on the show, feel free to head on over to helpforanxietydepression.com or straighttalksandrareish.com, where there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff on that page. Also, check out our Facebook page, Straight Talk Sandra Reish. Leave us a question for me or Melissa, and don't forget to like the page while you're there. You can hear this and any prior show as a podcast on my website, straighttalksandrareach.com, on the podcast app of your iPhone, and on iTunes under Straight Talk with Sandra Reich. Drop me a comment or a question or a show suggestion anytime at info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Well, January 31st, my name is Sandra Reich, and I promise I'll help you learn to live your best life again next Thursday. Same time, same channel. In the meanwhile, this is Straight Talk with Sandra Reich. Keep your eyes on the stars.
Thank you for listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reich. We hope you've enjoyed today's show, and we'll tune in again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. Now, go live your best life.